Welcome to Success with Sharon. I am really, really excited to welcome all of you today, and in particular, my special guest, Theresa Britt. So, this is Success with Sharon, and we invite you to soar. Are you ready to soar? It's all about connecting, it's about influencing, and it's about innovating. So, first of all, welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us, especially our guests from the pharmaceutical space. We're really excited to welcome you today. And we feature guests who have mastered success in their respective fields and are also paying it forward. That's really what it's all about. To reach your own pinnacle of success doesn't really count unless you're bringing others along the way. So we all work with aspiring leaders who want to know, what do I need to do next? How can I succeed? What can I do to really achieve a huge level of success and to really be prepared, not just for my future, but to help mentor a future generation of leaders who will carry on in my footsteps, who will do what I did. So before we start, I want to take this moment to acknowledge each and every one of you. I want to thank you for being with us. We have visitors from across the globe. So please use the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from. And if you're seeing this on replay, please remember that you can still comment and I'll reply. I want you to know that I invited today's special guest to join us because, as I said, she is a master of success. Theresa has over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry as a commercial operations leader. She holds a BS in exercise science from Arizona State University and is pursuing her MA in organizational leadership. And I've worked with her before. She is the ultimate leader. She also volunteers with the Healthcare Business Women's Association, which is how we met, supporting the Global Ambassador Program. Theresa is passionate about building teams and developing the next generation of leaders, which is what this is all about. Her hobbies include reading, enjoying the outdoors, and spending time with her two adult children and her husband. And as I said, I had the privilege of interviewing Theresa last fall during a Healthcare Business Women's Association episode of Ask the Expert. And an expert she is. At that time, I had the privilege of learning how she masterminded, literally, Otsuka's entire operation related to the pandemic and crisis management. So, Theresa, a warm, warm welcome to you. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so excited to be here today, and it's wonderful to be able to work with you again. Had a wonderful time interacting with you, and we had such a great conversation. We were talking about overcoming the overwhelm, and we were
Exactly.
talking about the COVID pandemic last fall. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I can't wait till everyone can hear what you have to share. So, let's start out with a question for you. How do
Sure.
you define success, and has that definition changed over time?
So that's a great question. I think I'll start with the second part of the question first is, has
Okay.
my definition of success changed over time? And I would say absolutely. I think that um, that's one of the things as you grow and you evolve as a person, is the way you view success has to grow and evolve with you. So I think how I define success is being able to achieve a goal that you're ambitious about, but while also striking the right balance of not harming anything or not having anything be negatively impacted on that way to success. So I think that for me, and this is my personal view of success, is I don't I don't necessarily measure success that if you're going to plow through things and you achieve and you ring that bell, and then you kind of look back and either you're maybe there by yourself, or there's been people or there's been things that have been sacrificed along the way. For me, really being successful is achieving the goals that I'm ambitious about, but also the journey getting there and feeling good about my way along that journey.
Okay. So, from what I just heard you say, there is and can be and should be joy in the journey. There should always be joy in the journey. And it's not just looking back and thinking, okay, I got here, I checked it off on my list. This is my bucket list or whatever it is. It's not that. It's about, and correct me if I'm wrong, carrying other people along with you, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's about enjoy it, and you it's also about it's about enjoying that journey, and it's about bringing people along with you and learning from them and leveraging the insights that they might have to help you maybe have that success be even more successful because you've been able to take their learnings. Um, and I say this because, you know, earlier in my career, um, I didn't approach success the same way.
Yeah.
I did not. I kind of said, "This is what I want, what I'm interested in. This is how I'm gonna measure success." And to some extent, there were blinders on earlier in my career, and I just moved forward and really didn't want to hear a lot a lot from other people about it. I wanted to kind of do things my way, and I achieved success, was very successful with certain things, but then I might look back and I would have realized that maybe that insight that somebody gave me could have made that success better. Or maybe I was not as close to somebody who I was before because I didn't bring them along or I didn't listen to them. So I definitely had situations in my life, and not just my professional life, but in my personal life, of trying to achieve things on my own, and then looking back and realizing that I had really missed out.
That's interesting. We must be cut from the same mold. I come from the same sort of a background. I grew up with parents who said, learn to type, you'll never amount to a damn thing. And for a while, I believed them. And then finally, I realized that I probably had something to offer. And if I didn't leave home and go out on my own and just do it, I would never feel successful in any aspect of my life. And so I did a lot of the same things. I'm wondering, because you said that and you talked about insight from others, are there people in either your personal or professional life whom you feel you've left behind and have not maintained within your network? They're no longer a part of your network because of that approach, or not? Have you reconnected
Yeah.
with anyone from the past?
So, um, a couple of years ago, I had a big reflection that I realized I didn't have a big enough network. Um, so I'll give you just a little bit of story about myself. I'll give you a little bit of a little
Please.
bit of backstory. Um, so I grew up in a very small. I went to Arizona State University. Um, I grew up in a very small town. There was one traffic light in the town, and my first version of success was to go to a big college. I wanted to go to Arizona State University because it was 3 hours away, and barely anybody in the town had ever left Benson, Arizona,
Yeah, no one
and
left.
no one
No one
left,
left, right.
and no one left, and that was kind of my first step into success. Was I said, if I want to be successful and I want to be able to, I want to achieve and go beyond this. And so I wanted to get to Arizona State University, and then I wanted to be successful there
Of course.
because everybody said, if you go there, it's going to be too big of a city. You're not going to be successful. So get there and then be successful. Um, and so I was able to achieve that. And then I was able to get into pharmaceuticals, did a lot of other things. And then I got married, had kids, and went through a divorce, was very focused then on the children and things like that. So had a lot of stuff kind of going on, and I was still kind of moving through my career, but I was not connecting with and staying connected with people who were helping me in my career. So I moved through life, get my kids into college. They're both young adults now. They're both almost graduated. And about 2 years ago, I sat back and I kind of reflected and I realized that I had a very small network of professional mentors and influencers and supporters because I hadn't stayed connected with them. And so that's something that I'm really working on now, is to really maintain relationships and build relationships with the current network I have, and trying to go back into my network for folks that are still around and actually go back and thank them, not
Mhm.
necessarily look for anything from them, but really to go back in time and actually thank them and recognize the support that they did give me. Um, and then try to pay it forward with the people that I work with now and really encourage them to build out those networks and then to make myself available for them so that they can help connect those networks.
So
So
it's not an ask, it's an acknowledgement, which is
it's more of
so
an
much more,
acknowledgement.
isn't it?
Yeah,
You've been in my life, you've impacted it in so many ways, in positive ways. It's time for me to give back, but let's stay connected.
exactly. Exactly. So I look back and I really wish that I would have listened more to people, taken the time to really get insights to continue to shape what my view of success was and to let that evolve and then to bring those folks along with me and let them have a little bit of that joy in watching in watching and being part of that success. Because I know that for me now as a leader of people and as a mother of grown children, there's really nothing better than to be kind of there cheering them on
Mhm.
and to be part of knowing that, maybe you just lent a shoulder to them, or maybe you did give them some really great advice. But it is a lot better to be going on our journeys with people with us.
Yeah, and maybe you were just present in the moment and listened actively.
Yep, sometimes it's
Active
just a
listening to
shoulder.
what they were saying and heard them out. Sometimes that's all it takes,
And
is
and
just an ear.
and sometimes I think that was why I lost connections with people, where you would reach out to them and they were busy, and you fall into this trap of, I don't want to bother them because they're busy. And
Right.
I I don't know which way that happened. Either I quit reaching out or they weren't busy. But now in my role and at this part in my life, I try to be very aware of that if somebody is reaching out to me, to take the time, and even if it is just a few minutes, to make myself available, because I wouldn't want to be the reason that they lost that connection. Does that make
Exactly.
sense?
Yeah, it does. And so you've moved from Arizona to New Jersey, correct?
I went from Arizona and then I moved to the state of Washington. So
Okay.
I graduated from Arizona State, and then I said, "Oh, what do I want to do next?" I wanted to kind of prove to myself that I could live outside of Arizona. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to experience life somewhere else. So I moved to the state of Washington, and I moved up there right out of college. And that was when I started working in pharmaceuticals. I started working for Bristol Myers Squibb, and then from Bristol Myers Squibb, I then moved to New Jersey, and that's how I ended up in New Jersey. And I've had my career in pharmaceuticals since then.
Okay. So the reason I asked that question is because we have moved probably, we've been in 7 states
Wow.
as well as a couple of countries. What I find is that people from early on in my career, I may have left behind or lost touch with them because I was moving, because I
Yes.
didn't take the effort to say, this is where I am now and let's stay connected. And now I think back and I think, gosh, I wish I could find that man who was my mentor when I was 14 years old and hired me to help in his accounting practice. He's the one who gave me great recommendations to get into
Yeah.
nursing school and mentored me along the way and taught me all kinds of things, not just about business, but about myself. And it was a real awakening. And I wish that I could find him. You know, his name is Philip Kushner, the accountant, not the author, but I wish that I could find him. And there are other people to whom I've stayed connected along the way just because I've made the effort, and all of them have been mentors to me. One is now deceased, unfortunately, but the other two are really, really close friends, and I touch base with them multiple times a year just because I adore them and because they gave me a chance and they gave me a start and they believed in me at a time when I didn't believe in myself. And I think that's important. So
Yeah.
just to maintain that connection and expand your network and stay with those people who were there for you when you needed them most, perhaps, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that I probably um, look back on with regret. I mean, I'll say I regret not maintaining those relationships, um, and make a pointed effort now to really work at the relationships that are important, that people that have supported me want to maintain those relationships, and then build relationships with that next generation of leaders and be there to support them.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love to see other young people, aspiring leaders, rise up and just do it.
Yes.
It's so exciting for me. One of the things that I always take pride in is being the person who connects the right people with the right people
Hmm.
and seeing them really do something that is exciting that will transform practice or education or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. So, will you please share a particular time or experience when you felt that you had achieved success or how you measure success for yourself? What are your guidelines? What are your parameters?
So I think I kind of mentioned at the beginning, my guidelines or my parameters for measuring success are kind of how I feel at the end of it. And that's, not looking back and then kind of seeing that you left people in your wake,
Hanging. Hmm.
right? You left them hanging, or maybe you marginalized somebody or didn't include them, or took somebody's idea maybe and didn't give them credit. There's a lot of ways that, you can kind of move too quickly. I don't think people are ever intentional about it, but they get over kind of focused on something.
Right.
And so I think, those are big parameters for me now. Is even if you achieve a project, it's not necessarily that you just achieved it, it's how you went about doing it. It's how you did it. And so the how of getting there is really a big measurement point for me on success, is to be able to have reached that goal, whether it was whatever it is, and then looking back and saying, how did I go about doing that? What were my behaviors? How do other people feel about your success? I think that's a good measuring stick too. Is, are people really happy for you about the success, or have you hurt somebody along the way and maybe they're not able to be happy for you because maybe you haven't included them, or they felt hurt along the way. So that's probably my biggest thing now. Is it's not just about that success, it's about the bigger picture and how all of it kind of fits into get good karma in your life, and living and being a good
Hmm.
person, and having a you know just having a good fulfilled life.
So, let's
um
switch gears for a moment, Teresa, because
sure.
one of the things that impressed me most was your success in handling the pandemic response for your organization. Can you just tell our viewers a little bit about that? Because I was so impressed with what you did, and that truly is a measure of success.
Sure. So yeah, that's a great professional. Yeah, that's a great professional example of success. And so what happened with the pandemic was, I work in the pharmaceutical industry. I work in commercial operations, and in commercial operations, we have a responsibility for supporting our sales teams. And during the pandemic, we know that none of us were able to get out and able to, do in-person interactions. And that's very tough when you are responsible for promoting pharmaceutical products, but it's also a challenge for the patients on the other end, who are needing products, or needing help, or needing services, for their health and well-being. And our company, Otsuka's, in the CNS. They're in the CNS therapeutic area, and we all know that with the pandemic, mental health has been a huge concern, and all of us have had a tremendous amount of strain with mental health. So for our company, we were very passionate about wanting to not necessarily get out and start really promoting our products to be driving sales, but to make sure that people had access to our products for mental health. So I was asked to help to pull together a team, um, to put together a plan and a protocol to be able to get our teams back out to be working in person and be working with physicians and caregivers and pharmacists and all of the people in the healthcare industry, to um, be able to make sure that people had access to the products. And one of the things we had to do is we had to pull together a very big cross-functional team. We pulled together an internal cross-functional team. We also partnered with a set of with doctors who were experts in the area, I'm trying to think, with the pandemic, that would be like an infectious disease. They were infectious disease specialists.
Mhm.
And then we partnered with our leadership team, and we put together a very comprehensive approach to how we would first start interacting virtually, and then how we would use data, and we would use information coming from the CDC along with guidance that came from this set of experts to put together protocols for our teams to be able to safely re-engage. We used a lot of mathematical equations. It was very data driven. We supplied PPE, but it was a very big, holistic, end-to-end approach that we put into place. And over the course of about 4 months, 3 to 4 months, we were able to have our team safely back out into the field, interacting um, with the HCPs and interacting with the healthcare professionals. And they have been able to stay in the field successfully since back in June of 2020.
Wow.
And the feedback we've received has been just tremendous on being able to get back out with the focus of focusing on the patient and focusing on improving mental health, and not just kind of looking at it as, let's kind of get out there and just try to be selling our products.
Right. So there's an interesting question in the chat that says, how important is mental health now with a new variant, with Omicron? Does it continue to be as important as it was before, or is it even more so because people are truly frightened?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that's coming back up, um, because it's, so many people are being affected with it, even if they have been vaccinated and have their
Mhm.
boosters. And we're definitely hearing, concerns from, definitely hearing concerns where people are still worried about, they do have mental health, they're concerned about their mental health. They're worried about bringing something back into their homes, um, worrying about their children becoming sick who can't be vaccinated. So yes, it's an ongoing, we're definitely, this is an ongoing crisis. It's an ongoing mental health challenge that we have. We're almost 2 years into the pandemic where we've been heavily restricted with what we're doing. And it's absolutely an ongoing challenge for probably everybody to some extent.
Right. And I would think it would be even more so now. I was reading in this morning's Washington Post about how a lot of parents, because the vaccine is soon going to be available for people up to age 5, were okay vaccinating their kids who were between 6 and 10. But under 5, they're really thinking twice, even though they
Mm,
themselves have been vaccinated and boosted. They really worry about the long-term effects because the evidence is not there. That in itself, if you have young employees with young families, that has to be an issue that totally stresses them out.
yeah. Yeah, I think there's just stresses in so many ways. It's with the vaccine. It's not being able to see people the way you normally would. It's just the ongoing things. And I think there's a lot of just, um, people are tired.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's hard. It's exhausting to just constantly be able to constantly have to worry about all of these different things. And then people are very busy. Sharon, you and I were talking about this before we got on the
Hmm.
call, is that people's lives are very busy and people have a lot of things they want to do. Kind of going back to the success thing, is
Right.
you don't want to be putting your ambitions and your successes and your goals on the back burner because of something like the pandemic. So there's a lot of stresses with wanting to be able to get back out there and do things, and be able to, still work towards your goals. Um, but being afraid that if I get sick, how am I going to do that?
Exactly.
We don't have, you and I talked about this, that we don't have a week to be sick.
No.
Um, so there's
And
a
we
lot of
take a lot of precautions
we take
between
a
us,
lot of
seriously.
precautions, and
Yeah.
we don't have that. So the stress from the pandemic comes in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think with an evolving, aspiring workforce with people from multi generations, you see it even more. Young people
absolutely.
don't want the same things that established professionals want. Young people are looking more toward, what's the culture of this organization I'm joining? Are their goals, is their mission consistent with my own? Is their purpose, does it align with who I am and what I believe? It's not so much about the salary and the benefits and whatnot. There's so much more to it right now.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of goes to what we were talking about about how I define success, that it's much more than just that promotion.
Hmm.
It's much more than just what my salary is. It's all these other things. It's what's the culture like, what's the company like, what does the company stand for? It's all of those other things. That much more kind of holistic view um, on just
Exactly.
on your life that rounds it out. It's not just about one thing. It's changed a lot.
Yeah, it certainly has. So I touted you as a master of success. What attribute do you think has contributed to achieving your own goals?
So I would say that probably one of probably the most important attribute is planning. As probably boring as that sounds, is the thing for me. Um, the things that I've been ambitious about and I've wanted to work to succeed. I've wanted to succeed. I've had to work at it, and to work at it efficiently and effectively takes planning.
Hmm.
So your success, your personal success or your professional success, the way I've been successful with that is by managing it the same way I would manage a good project plan. Um, and really first take time to really think about it. You know, what is your vision? What is the vision you have for that success? And then how would I what would my objectives be to get there? And then what would those actions be for how I'm going to achieve those objectives for what that success looks like? But it's all for me. It's always been planning. Um, I like to I like to think a lot. You know, I like to spend time writing and thinking and making lists and stuff like that, and to take the time to really kind of plan out and say, what does that look like for me at this point in my life? And it changes. Just like I
Right.
mentioned, when I was young, my aspiration was the picture in my head was I want to be somewhere where there's more than one stoplight. And I want to be
Hmm.
going to a big school where it's diverse and, um, you know, I'm learning about new people and new cultures and all types of stuff. And so that was like a vision I had. And then I had to work to plan to get there. Well, how was I going to do it? I needed to get good grades, had to talk to my parents. My parents said that they wouldn't send me to ASU. I had to get a scholarship to get there. So then I had to
Right.
figure out how was I going to get that scholarship. So I had to plan for all of that.
Right.
And you know, it's the same way with the story about the pandemic. Is there was a lot of planning with that. That success came with planning. Was when the CCO called me up and said, I would want your help with this. The first thing I did was I started planning and talking to people and put a plan together and then executing on that plan. So I would say that that's been probably my strongest attribute for success.
Right.
And then my second one is being flexible and being able to adjust that plan as things change, because you can only control so much within your plan. And I would say that's the second piece, is just being open-minded, being flexible, and having a real change mindset so that you can kind of navigate and say, oh, this has kind of changed. So now I need to adjust my plan a little bit. And your definition of success may change along the way, but being those two things together, planning and then being willing to adjust your plan.
Okay, that's really interesting. Me, two things come to mind. Number one, I'm picturing the small town in which you grew up. I'm trying to picture it in my mind because I'm thinking when I grew up, my whatever escape was riding the Broad Street subway in Philadelphia. And my mother gave us a quarter and told us to get lost for the day. That was about it. She had five kids. She didn't know what to do with any of us. And she had those five kids in 7 years. It was
Oh,
just overwhelming and it was just too much. Number two is that concept of the goal and the plan. So I relate that to the GPS. We all know what a GPS is. Sometimes we can't get into the car without at least activating it, either on our phone or within the car system itself, because it tells us where we're going. We have a destination and we need to know how to get there. When I look at GPS, that to me means goals, process or plan, and strategy or solution. That is
mhm.
basically the same thing. You wouldn't get out on that journey on a dead end road not knowing where you're going without having some sort of a plan in terms of how you're going to get there and what you're going to do when you arrive. What is the solution? What is the strategy? How do you plan to achieve whatever it is you've set out to do? So I really love that response from a standpoint of the concept of a plan and part of that goal, because you and I both know you can't start a business without a plan.
No?
You have to know what it is you're doing, and you have to have some idea of how it is you're going to achieve that level of success or some semblance of success to get there.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me.
And I think without the plan, that's where and I had mentioned this earlier that I have had situations where I've kind of I've plowed through too hard. And when I would sit back and reflect back on it, it was usually because there was a lack of a plan. Is
Hmm.
that I would get too focused on something, I would be moving too quickly, I would be pushing through barriers when it was too hard. Like sometimes the resistance is there for a reason.
Right.
And when I would look back and kind of see the people that I bruised along the way or, things that I could have done better, it was usually because I hadn't planned. And it was definitely because I wasn't having that open mindset and that change mindset to saying, there's signals coming to me and I'm feeling resistance that I need to pause and I need to think about and maybe adjust my plan. So that's yeah, I mean, planning is it. I'm a big planner. If there's anybody out there who knows me, you guys know that I am a very big planner with everything. If there's anybody out there who works with me.
Well, and by the way, those who are out there, please feel free to add your comments. We're happy to chat and to respond to those. Teresa, you also mentioned flexibility. That's the same thing as being in your car. There's a dead end ahead, there's
Yes.
construction ahead, there's been an accident ahead. You have to change your plan, right? There has to be plan B or sometimes plan C.
Yep.
But you know you're going to
Absolutely.
get there regardless of what obstacle is in the way. And that's something I admire about you tremendously. I look at you and I see you as both a mentor and an influencer. How important is it to be one, the other, or both within your industry and beyond?
Oh, it's I think it's critical. I think it's critical to be both. Um I think the role of influencer is becoming more and more important
Hmm.
as the way we do business has flattened and we're becoming much less hierarchical, especially the organization that I work with, and as collaboration is becoming much more important. Um, I think that for most of my career, I was in an organization that was very hierarchical, and work kind of made it to you, and you had authority because you were a manager and stuff like that. And now work is different, especially now with COVID. It's a very flat organization.
Life is different, isn't it?
Life
Yeah.
is different. I mean, just the world is different. People have access to information. You can get information. You're not waiting for people to give you information the way you used to before. It's just very different. So being an influencer and having a relationship with a group of people and getting to know the environment, getting to know the environment, doing research to kind of understand what people are thinking and how people are feeling, and then being able to synthesize all of that and be an influencer is extremely important. And you can be an influencer at any level. You don't have to be a director or a senior director or a part of the C-suite or the ELT to be an influencer. Um, but being an influencer within your peer group, um, having the knowledge and being an influencer to your stakeholders is absolutely critically important. And I think it's something that all of us should spend time building and understanding your who is that team, that group of people that um, you are an influencer of, or you're an influencing part as a team. And I see it very different than mentoring.
Right.
So, right, mentoring is very, very important also, I think, from a mentor and a mentee perspective. And regardless, I think you get to a point in your career, I think you always need a mentor. And then you get to a certain part of your career where I think you want to have mentees because you want to be able to pay it forward. So
Exactly.
so both of them are very, very important and for different reasons. The mentor mentee piece is to be helping you in maybe achieving your goals or working on some behavioral things you're trying to work on, filling gaps, whatever
Right.
that is, getting
Right.
some feedback. That's more of a personal type of thing. The influencer thing, I think, is really kind of is trying to go broader outside and taking ideas, getting important concepts, having people hear about diversity or different points of view, I think is really key for being an influencer.
And I think that in both of our fields, sometimes you can influence without authority. So sometimes what seems like a minute
Absolutely.
or perhaps minimal idea has come from someone from within the organization, and it turns out to be brilliant. It turns out to be the game changer. So we have a question in the chat I'd like you to respond to from Allison. Can you speak about the challenges to achieving success as a woman specifically and how you overcame them? Thank you, Allison.
Thanks for the question, Allison. Um, so speak about, yeah, there were many challenges. So I mean, and there still are. So we I don't even know where to start. That's like that's like a whole
This
that's
is
like
a
a whole
dissertation, right?
that's like a whole show right there just about that. So I think that I think that there's more openness now, and there's definitely many more doors open to us as women today. I'm grateful for many women who have come before me who have helped to break down the barriers, and have helped open doors and given me opportunities, to be able to be on projects and who've trusted me with the opportunity to lead. And I'm grateful for the men who saw talent in me or
Hmm.
something in me and gave me those opportunities. Um, so I think that for me, how I overcame some of the challenges was I really tried to find the right fit for myself in certain roles where I had a lot to offer and I could show success. So I'm going to tie this back to success now.
Go for it.
Is what how I found success was finding opportunities where I had an expertise and I had trust with somebody, and they would kind of let me get in there to help on a project or to work with a person. And then when you do a really good job, it's amazing how the doors open.
Hmm.
But for me, it was about getting in there with something that I had to offer. They needed my expertise, they needed a really hard worker, and that was kind of how I got in the door and then really showed them like what I was able to do. And that was very effective with male leaders and with women leaders. So I've seen that is a way to kind of get in there, is to get in there with something you can offer and then ask for more and let things kind of build out and build out around you. Um, so I don't know. I hopefully that kind of answered your question.
I think so. Let's step back a moment. We all wish, all of us do, as successful women leaders, we wish that we knew then what we know now. We may have stumbled along the way. It would have made our journey so much easier if we knew in advance what was coming down the pipeline. What advice would you give to your younger self if you were starting over?
It would be in the same vein of what we talked about before about maintaining relationships and things. Is I would have leaned on people around me much more than I did, and I would have taken the time to build stronger relationships and really to get more insight from people, ask more questions, and be vulnerable. That was definitely something that I shed, that it was something that I needed to kind of shed, was being resistant to being vulnerable,
Mhm.
um, and having somebody kind of say to me, "That's not a good plan. Like what you're thinking is not necessarily the best plan." And I struggled with that earlier in my career, and it would really be that it would be to be vulnerable, ask people for their opinion, and be willing to accept people's help. Because there were definitely people who I had mentors and people in my life who said, "Let me help you with that. Let me open that door." And I would, maybe there were times where I said, "That's okay. I'm going to do it on my own." And I would have just said yes. I would have said, "Yes, please. Yes, please, and thank you for that support."
I would do the same right now. I would absolutely do the same thing because many times it was a solo show, go it alone, and you know that you can either be the Lone Ranger or you can be the Brady Bunch.
Yep,
Which one works
exactly.
better, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, Allison, kind of going back to your question, I'm thinking about this a little more. I think some of the other challenges that I experienced was um, being being taken serious from a technical perspective. I worked in distribution and I worked with a lot of IT, you know, IT projects and things like that because I've been in operations my entire career. I've always been in operations. Um, and that was an area that was traditionally, it was very male focused, it was male dominated. Working in distribution, I would be the only I would be the only female who would be in, who wasn't, let's say, um, like an EA or an administrative assistant.
Right.
And so there were definitely challenges with kind of people taking me seriously from a technical perspective. Um, And with that, how I kind of got over that was I really worked hard at it. I built really good relationships with people that were really technical and learned, and then surrounded myself with people that kind of helped give you the credibility, and so really kind of built really good collaborations and really good partnerships. But that was a challenge that I dealt with early in my career. I think it's less so now because it's much more, the technology field is much more accepting now. There's so many women in it. Women are leading tech, women are leading manufacturing now. But that was another challenge that I dealt with in the area that I was in because it was very male dominated.
Right. Let me ask you one more thing, and we've not talked about it in the past, but along this road to success, along this journey, is it okay when you reach out and volunteer to do something and you plan to prove how smart you are or how good you are and what a finisher you are? Is it okay to stumble along the way and pick up those pieces, be resilient, push through, rise up? It's okay to make a mistake, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we have to be completely prepared that every day we're going to make mistakes.
Hmm.
And that's part of being flexible and being open-minded and, kind of having that learning mentality all the time and being open to change. Um, yeah, I mean, nothing, no plan is going to go perfect. I mean, stuff doesn't go perfect just trying to like get yourself dressed and get out to
Right.
dinner sometimes. So let alone with a big project. But I think we have to be really, you have to be prepared for that, and you need to be resilient. You need to be prepared to be resilient, and that's another reason why you need people around you to be successful, because it can get very lonely when you're on that road by yourself, and resiliency comes through um, working through things, and many times you need others around you, you need other perspectives, and you need help sometimes. So that's another reason why it's good to be on the journey with people, because
Hmm.
you're stronger in teams. and
Okay.
and yeah.
So to recap, because we're coming to a close, what advice would you give to women leaders, Theresa, as they navigate the system and reach new levels of responsibility? One short sentence, one piece of advice. What would you tell them?
Ask me the question one more time.
What advice would you give to women leaders as they navigate the system and reach new levels of responsibility?
Take the time to really understand what it is you want. Take some time to plan it, and then surround yourself with people that are going to support you and challenge you and be there to cheer you on. through whatever that journey is.
Okay, I love that. It's time for a close. I hate to say that because the conversation is so stimulating. It's always great to chat with you. But this is our invitation to join us next month for another success story from abroad. That event will take place rather than on the first week in March, the second week in March, only because life gets in the way and I'm moving. And as I shared with Theresa, might not have connectivity. So it'll be March the 3rd, the second week in March. You'll hear all about it. But for now, I want to thank you, Theresa, for being my guest, for sharing with us, for sharing the wealth. Thank you so much for being here today. And thanks to each of you for joining us. This has been a really lively session, a very exciting session. Again, thank you, Theresa, for being my guest and for sharing your secrets to success.
Thank you, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Sharon. Thank you, everybody, for
Take care. Thanks,
joining.
everybody.